Dear students, let us start discussion today on 15th January 2016 newspaper. Before going into the discussion, so we have taken forward this civils prep, and thank you very much for your response towards the civils prep. And on this festival day, I am restarting my question and answer discussion, and hopefully I will continue for ever. In this context, please give your recommendations how I shall proceed with the articles. Previously, students used to ask me, give the name of the article because I am not discussing them in a proper order. So I want to improve this particular situation to discuss the things in a proper order, taking the newspaper directly onto the board of discussion. So if you have any of these requests or suggestions, please let me know. It helps me to improve my service towards you. And the second thing is, please write answers. Please write answers, that makes a difference. And again, for the next 7 days, I'll give you a reminder on about civils prep. And the second thing, for another 3 or 4 days, we will continue to post the videos on Show Me so that a shift can be easy for the students. So the first article today, it is related to the right to religion in India, right to freedom of religion in India. Now let us forget about this article and let's try to discuss about the Article 25 and Article 26 of the Constitution and the limitations imposed onto them. Now, let's recollect what the Santara case is, the judgment of the Supreme Court in Santara. Now, the Rajasthan High Court, it has declared that the Santara is not an established practice in the Jain religion. So, it has constructed it as a suicide rather than a religious practice. So, if it is a suicide, it is a punishable offense. If it is a religious practice, it is protected under the freedom of religion. And the second thing is access for the women to various places of worship. Now, if they are considered as the public places on a right to equality, they shall be able to equally access along with the men to these places of worship. Article 25 subclause 1, what it states is, every person has a right to freely profess, practice and propagate a religion. So here, what is the definition of the religion? Here, religion means a set of beliefs and essentially certain customs for practice. So, your beliefs and practices, these constitute a religion. So here, we need to understand what is a custom. So what the Supreme Court has clarified is, the customs do not automatically come under a religious practice. For example, animal sacrifice. So it's, though you can argue that it's a freedom of religion, but however, the customs shall establish their connection to the practice of a religion. There shall be a proven custom, and this custom shall be able to establish it to a religion. And the second thing is, the Article 25 subclause 1, it is enforceable against the state and not against the private individuals and not corporates. Now here, Supreme Court has clarified that a corporate body that is functionally, financially and administratively controlled by the state, it also comes under the definition of the state for the implementation of the fundamental rights. And Article 25 subclause 2 states that the state can interfere in the religious practices to prevent untouchability to promote social welfare. And finally, the places of worship and access to these places of worship is constitutionally protected. It means equality has to be prevailed in these places of worship. Now, let's conclude this. A custom has to show its existence and this custom essentially to be related to a religion. And next is, the state can impose reasonable restrictions, and these restrictions are constitutionally protected. In this context, the Travancore Devasthanam Board, it has to establish that not allowing a woman is a custom, and this practice has a religious significance. That is, it is connected to the practice of a religion. Custom and religion are connected with each other. And second thing is, the Devasthanam Board is not a private entity but a public entity. So if it states itself as a private entity, then it do not come under the definition of the state. So once these two it is able to prove that, then it can continue its practice of not allowing the woman. On the other hand, women can argue for the entry or temple entry based on their right for equality. So in this way, right to equality and right to freedom of religion appears to be in conflict with each other. And Article 26B, it grants the religious denominations the right to manage their own religious affairs. So in this context, the Travancore Devasthanam Board, it can say that under Constitution it has the right to manage its own affairs and the state has no right to interfere, so that it can impose its own rules and restrictions with regard to the access for the women into the temple based on its customary practices. So these are the constitutional arguments we can see over here. And the next is WIPO, that is Intellectual Property Rights Regime in India and World Intellectual Property Organization. Let us talk about this. Now, what are the reasons for low investment flows in India, or a weak startup environment in India, or lack of innovation climate in India? One of the reasons which is strongly stated is a weak intellectual property regime. So in this context, United States of America, under its Special 301 report of 2015, India was placed on priority watch list. So what is this Special 301? So under this, any country which do not give adequate protection to the intellectual property rights or fair and equitable market access to the United States business, they will be put under the watch list and certain restrictions are imposed. This is what is called Special 301 report of the United States. India is under the priority watch list for the weak intellectual property regime. So to change this situation, we are trying to bring in a new intellectual property rights policy. So it is based on majorly the awareness generation, enforcement and capacity building towards the intellectual property rights in India. So WIPO is assisting actually the India to improve its intellectual property situation. Now, a connected topic to this is startup ecosystem and the ICMR chief's comments. Now, the startup ecosystem, why? Though India has the third highest startups being originated on this land, they are not sustaining on this land. Most of them, once they scale up, they are shifting to United States or to the Singapore. The reason is the startup climate and environment. Here, if you carefully observe, the angel investors, they don't have a proper environment with the existing tax system, where their money is almost doubly taxed. Taxed as a profit of a startup and also as a profit of an angel investor. And when his money has been invested in a startup, that money is also taxed as a profit of the startup. It means the tax ecosystem is highly unfavorable towards the startups. And too many regulatory exercises, ease of doing business is very complex. And the governmental support, incentive, loan mechanism, banking sector, all these are very weak towards the startups. Finally, if you take United States of America, that is QTEL, or intelligence QTEL, it is actually promoted by CIA towards cyber security measures. In India, no agency promotes independently the startups towards this innovative thinking and exercise. And ICMR chief, she talks about the weak ecosystem for research and innovation in India. So the fund flow has decreased and there is no managerial and financial flexibility to manage the research institutions, which is very critical for their functioning. And the data insufficiency. If you want to take the drug trials, if you want to show the real impact on the people, etc., you need to have sufficient data and information. So the data, reliable data, is not available in India. So these are the three articles, one way or the other way they are connected with each other. Now, the stagflation risk ahead. What is the meaning of stagflation? It stands for stagnation plus inflation. The stagnation refers to the contraction in our lack of growth in the industrial production. Inflation leads to a rise in prices, especially the food inflation. Retail inflation is increasing in India. So the stagnation is clearly visible based on the managers or purchase managers index, or it is called as the Nikkei India manufacturers manager purchasing index. So in this case, in December, India's manufacturing growth is actually contracting. It is both in the basic goods and the capital goods. That is a sign of stagnation. And next, after the 7th Pay Commission recommendations on rise in the salaries, one pay and one rank system. So this have created the increased money power flow of money, and there it is also leading to an inflation. So the stagnation plus inflation is a dangerous situation that can erode the value of the money and create a crisis of unemployment. So what are the reasons for this? If you observe, the global demand, export demand is shrinking, and India has the largest fall in the export growth in the last quarter, that is to the tune of 16%. And the domestic demand on the rural front is also weak due to deficit monsoons. And the contraction of demand is also due to the external situation related to the Chinese condition, where the demand in China is rapidly falling now. And yuan situation or devaluation of the yuan currency has made Chinese products highly competitive compared to other countries. So the private investment, or in these circumstances investment flows have to increase. But in India, the private investment flows are not sufficient to create a demand. So the public sector has to take up the responsibility. In the early stages of the stagflation, generally, the government takes up the responsibility through liberalization of its fiscal policy. That's what Dr. Arvind Subramanian was telling us. But the government wants to keep up its fiscal consolidation path. But however, the situation is exceptional where the government has to make an exceptional decision. Because the monetary policy can no longer be a tool. The reason is there is an inflation targeting. It means once the inflation crosses this target, the major action of the monetary policy will be to control that inflation. So in these circumstances, monetary policy easing can never be expected. So only the instrument which is left with us now is fiscal policy, and the government has to ease its fiscal policy to create the demand in the market. Next, coming to a good case study which you can quote in your examination. This is related to the radio in the case of the tribal Maoist problem. To face the Maoist problem, how can we successfully use the radio? Now, it is a case study on Baltu radio or Bultu radio. I don't know how to spell it. So, it is in Balrampur in Madhya Pradesh. So, what they did is, the grievances of the citizens are redressed using this Baltu radio. Added to that, the mobile penetration today is much deep into the tribal belts too, and the internet access has increased. So a radio, internet access, mobile technology together can improve the communication or engagement with the tribal people. The strength of the Maoists is to engage, or there is a dominance of idea over the tribal people. And the government and the civil servants along with the citizen groups, they have to find the new ways of engaging with the tribal people. So it means there shall be a war of ideas between democratization and also the Maoization of the people. So in these circumstances, once the development and thought of developmental ideas reaches to these people, then Maoism automatically subsides. These can be effective tools towards taking the grievance redressal of these people to the next level. So you can use this as a case study. CG Net Swara, Baltu Radio in Balrampur. These are the successful examples where the tribal people are constructively engaged and their grievances are reduced for the better. And next is polio, the Pakistani situation. You know that almost more than 4/5 of the total global polio, it lies in the Afghanistan and Pakistan. And India is declared as a polio free. But with so much of polio existing in Afghanistan and Pakistan, India can never be assured that its situation is safe. So in this context, what are the challenges in Af-Pak region? One are misconceptions. The people believe that the vaccination is a Western idea to bring in the sterility among the children. So health workers are facing a daunting task to fight this. Added to that, using healthcare delivery methods by CIA to find the Osama, it has created deep suspicion among the militants on the immunization program, and the attacks on the healthcare workers have increased. So in this context, how the Afghanistan and Pakistan they deal with this vaccination crisis, so that's going to determine the future of polio eradication from the world. And the next is, it is related to the communalization of the politics. Recently in the Malda districts, there is a huge violence. So it is some people depicted it as lawlessness and some people try to give it a communal color. So every riot or every action in India descended is taking a communal color. The reason is it has a specific political advantage. It is not only for the rightist parties, even the center leftists, they are more shifting towards are playing into the hands of the divisive politics. The reason being the first past the post system. As now it is the time we have to seriously think about electoral reforms towards bringing proportional representation to tide over the communalization of the political system in the country. Now India-Pakistan agreed to put off foreign secretary talks. Now it is not totally put off of foreign secretary talks, it's just a postponement to a convenient date. And let's recollect yesterday's article of Mr. Rakesh Sood. It talks about the consistency and lack of coherence with regard to India and Pakistan on continuation of dialogue. From the days of VP Singh to the days of Prime Minister Modi, when we initiated the confidence building measures to comprehensive dialogue, always this talks and no talks and talks, terrorism, no talks. This continuum is moving forward. And India also want to see certain credible steps from the Pakistan against the Patakun Court incident or terror perpetrators. So these are the articles for today and wish you all the best. And for sure, I'm going to discuss from today all the questions in the form of a video. Requesting you to write the answers and bring it to the administrator's notice, whatever the problems you are facing so that they can rectify them. So I request you to properly use that platform of Civils Prep and you can talk to them and ask them to improve the things. They are also getting few more teachers to improve that particular Civils Prep platform. Hope it will help you better. And thank you very much.